Hello to all craft lovers. My name is Nadia, and you are on my knitting channel. In this video, we will knit an amazing hat. Look, this time the hat will have a textured surface. But it is knitted the same way as the previous ones. In rows from the edge of the hat to the crown. In the end, the fabric is simply sewn. In this video, I will also show you how to sew this hat seamlessly. See, everything here is perfect as always. We will sew not just slip stitches, but seamlessly and invisibly, following the yarn's path in knitting. We will also seamlessly sew this pattern. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to not miss notifications about new videos. I always have many discoveries and knitting know-how. Let's get started. For knitting this hat, I will need 100 grams of Semenovskaya Ariadne yarn. 50% wool, 50% acrylic. 100 grams equals 123 meters. I like this yarn, it's not scratchy. It behaves well, and hats made from it are quite cozy. For this yarn, I use a 7mm crochet hook. I will also need 2 contrasting threads for seamless sewing. I will make the hat for a head size of 55 to 56 centimeters, maybe 57 centimeters. I have a fairly small head size, but you can adjust for your size. If you have a larger size or a high forehead, you can cast on more stitches. I will cast on 30 stitches. If you have a high forehead, you can cast on 32 stitches. Of course, you can cast on even more stitches, but one skein might not be enough. Because the pattern we will knit uses quite a bit of yarn, although the hat itself is without a brim. So, I cast on 30 chains with a contrasting thread and a 7mm hook. This will be the height of the hat from the crown to its open edge. At first, it will seem like a long cap, but it will shrink when you crochet. The chain is always wider than the resulting crochet. The first row with the main color, chain 1 for turning. Insert the hook into the second chain from the hook and make a slip stitch. Then I start crocheting the first row with the pattern. Yarn over the hook, insert into the next chain, and draw up a loop. 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops. This is called a half double crochet. Alternate with slip stitch and half double crochet to the last 6 stitches. Work this pattern to the last 6 stitches. The last stitch in the pattern is a half double crochet, then switch to slip stitches for the last 6 stitches, working in the back loop. This part will be the hat's ribbing. You can make it wider or narrower. I like it with 6 slip stitches. That was the first row. Row 2. Chain 1 for turning. Turn your work. Insert the hook into the back loop and crochet slip stitches. This row will be entirely slip stitches. The entire hat is crocheted into the back loop. In the first row, all stitches were crocheted into the back loop, and in the second row, all stitches will also be crocheted into the back loop. This will be a short row, starting to shape the crown. The crown of this hat is not crocheted in wedges, but will follow a specific row repeat. In my case, it will be rows repeated in a sequence. In the second row, do not crochet to the end of the hat, leaving 4 stitches unworked. This means 26 slip stitches. Crochet 26 slip stitches, leaving 4 stitches. Row 3. Chain 1 for turning. Turn your work. Odd rows are crocheted on the wrong side. Even rows are crocheted on the right side. Insert the hook into the second chain from the hook and make a slip stitch. In the next chain, make a half double crochet. Alternate slip stitch and half double crochet to the last 6 stitches, which form the ribbing. Slip stitch, half double crochet. Reach the last 6 stitches and crochet slip stitches in the back loop. 6 slip stitches in the back loop. Row 4. Chain 1 for turning. Turn your work. This row will crochet all the stitches to the crown, completing the short row. Crochet slip stitches into the back loop. Even rows are crocheted on the right side, only with slip stitches. There will be 30 slip stitches to the end of the row. Reach the first step. For the last slip stitch, insert the hook into the bump from the previous step. These bumps are not needed on the right side of this pattern. Insert the hook into this bump and then into the back loop of the next stitch in the previous row. Make a slip stitch through all these loops. This lengthens and attaches the bump to the previous row, avoiding any protrusions. Continue with 4 more slip stitches. "30 stitches in total. The row is complete. Row 4 is complete. Moving on to row 5. Chain 1 for turning. Turn your work and crochet into the back loop. Start with a slip stitch. Then, half double crochet. Alternate slip stitch and half double crochet to the last 6 stitches. In the last 6 stitches, crochet slip stitches in the back loop. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slip stitches. Row 6. Chain 1 for turning. Turn your work. Insert the hook into the second chain from the hook and crochet slip stitches. 30 slip stitches to the end of the row. Row 6 is complete. The pattern repeat, or rapport G for this hat is rows 1 through 6. Row 7 is identical to row 1. Repeat rows 1 through 6 for the entire hat. The contrasting thread is not part of the repeat, it is used only for sewing the row. Row 7 is equivalent to row 1. Row 8 is equivalent to row 2. Row 9 is equivalent to row 3, and so on. Repeat rows 1 through 6. I will show you the finished hat and its crown. Here is the braid, and here is another braid. As we can see, these braids are full, and here is the shortened braid. We see 2 full braids and 1 shortened braid. This is 6 rows. For ease of sewing, I divided the repeat into full braid, shortened braid, full braid. It's easier to sew full rows than shortened rows. This is the goal, these braids. If I count this ribbing, there will be 33 braids. So, repeat rows 1 to 6 11 times. Adjust the number of repeats for different head sizes. Let's practice this. Row 7, which is like row 1. Chain 1 for turning. Turn. Insert the hook into the second chain from the hook. Make a slip stitch. Half double crochet. Slip stitch. Half double crochet. Work this to the last 6 stitches. In the last 6 stitches, crochet slip stitches for the ribbing. This was row 7. Row 8 is like row 2. Chain 1 for turning. Turn. Slip stitches into the back loop. Do not crochet the last 4 stitches. Row 9 is like row 3. Chain 1 for turning. Slip stitch. Half double crochet. Alternate to the last 6 stitches. Slip stitches for the ribbing. This was row 9. Row 10 is like row 4. Chain 1 for turning. Slip stitches into the back loop. Work to the end and crochet the step from the previous row. Row 11 and row 12 are full rows. Return to row 1 and repeat the pattern to the desired height. I finished crocheting the hat. I have 11 repeats. In the 11th repeat, I will not crochet the last row, row 6, yet. We will join the hat parts together, and this will be done with a needle. Leave a 2-meter tail from the working yarn. This should be enough to sew this row. I use a contrasting thread, red this time, for the last row. The contrasting thread helps understand the yarn's path in the crochet. Crochet 30 slip stitches with the contrasting thread to the end of the row. Now, I'll show you how to sew the hat seamlessly. Arrange the piece with the green cast-on thread towards you and the red finishing thread away from you. This is the wrong side, and the right side is inside. The cast-on tail is on the left, and the sewing tail is on the right. Using a needle with a large eye, I use Knit Pro. Start sewing by inserting the needle into a beige stitch. Then following the green thread's path on the opposite side, catching the 2 loops indicated by the green thread. Pull tight. Insert the needle into the next chain space. Pull through. And continue by inserting the needle into the next edge stitch and then into the newly formed stitch. Repeat this process until the row is closed. If this seam tutorial is getting repetitive, let me know in the comments. Pull tight, catch the 2 loops again, and repeat until finished. in the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch, in the loop. I catch 2 threads that the green thread catches. In the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch, in the loop. I catch 2 threads. In the loop, into the edge stitch. I tighten. Into the edge stitch, in the loop. Here, it's important to try to maintain the density with which you were crocheting, so it's neither loose nor tight, so the seam blends with the crocheting itself. So the first 6 stitches are ribbing. In other words, these were just single crochet stitches. I've shown how to seam them a million times. Next, it'll be a bit more complicated when the pattern starts. But we have the green thread. It will always be a clue. I reach the pattern. See, here are a few stitches starting to stand out. And then I look at how the green thread is going. Now it wraps around these 2 threads it catches. It seems like it was a half double crochet with a yarn over. The texture of the threads slightly changes. So, into the loop, into the edge stitch. On the opposite side. Not on the red side, it all stays the same. Only changes on the green side. Here, look. Here are those 2 threads that the green thread catches. And I sew them through. Into the loop. Into the edge stitch. So, again, into the loop, into the edge stitch. Again, I look, here they are, 2 threads. And I sew them together with a simple seam. The main thing is to understand that contrasting threads will guide the seaming trajectory. And that's it. They're not needed for anything else. So, into the loop, into the edge stitch. And again, 2 threads. Here they are. Well, I hope this moment is clear. I work like this until the end of the row. Here, I intentionally shifted. So the pattern begins and ends with complete rows, untrimmed. To make seaming easier, I seam until the end of the row. Meet me there. I'll show you how to gather the crown. I approach the final stitches. 2 threads on the green part. So, the same into the loop. Into the edge stitch. I tighten. Now into the edge stitch. Into the loop, I tighten. The last 2 threads. Here, I hook them again. So, into the loop, into the edge stitch. And that's it. And then, these 2 tails come to one point. And now, if I tie them, and you look at the loop, they form. It's just a slip stitch. And now, as I tie them, it will be the back bridge of this slip stitch. In fact, we're stitching the row with a needle. Remove the contrasting threads. The red contrasting thread comes off easily. And the green one, too. Carefully, step by step. loop by loop. So, I carefully remove the green thread. I don't cut it. I'm afraid to cut something necessary. In my opinion, it's easier to remove it like this. Here, you see, the pattern changes. But don't worry. Removing the thread won't cause anything to unravel. Everything's stitched. If you stitched exactly like I did, you've stitched all the necessary threads. Caught everything, and there's the pattern. It's starting to come together. Like this ribbed stitch. And here, too. In general, I remove this thread. And then we gather the crown. I tuck in this tail. It's small. Just along the braid. On the wrong side, of course. And I'll lay the second tail along this braid. So, next, I take another thread of the same color. Now, I gather the crown. You see, I've left a bit of the red thread. But it's okay. It will all be tidied up. So, if you're using contrasting threads, it's better to match them closely to the main ones. Don't use red. So, I insert into one pom-pom, into the edge, this thread. I cut it about 30 centimeters here. Skip one, insert into the next pom-pom. Notice, my hat is turned inside out now. So, into the next one. I insert every other pom-pom to gather the crown. I work like this around the perimeter. There are 22 of these pom-poms. In total, I'll have an even number. Here, it can be any number. In principle. But if you're following my tutorial, you should also end up with an even number of edge pom-poms. I reach the end of the row. It's too early to tighten more. In the last one. Now, I start tightening the second round. In the last pom-pom, I transition to the second round. So, here, the pom-poms I left in the previous round. I work through every other one again. This method is perfect if you have a wide crown and need to gather a lot of fabric. It's better to gather in 2 rounds. It gathers perfectly, leaving no holes. If you gather all at once, you'll have a hole like this in the crown. Why would we need that? We don't. To sew up this hole? But it won't look as nice. So, here's what we do. 2 rounds of thread to gather the crown without any holes, nicely and neatly. And no need for a pom-pom. So, I reach the tail of the first one. Here's the first tail. Here's the second. They almost meet at one point. I pull one tail. I pull the other. And pull again. Pulling one tail. The bottom round gathers. You can see it clearly. Now, I pull the top round. I pull on the other tail. Pulling one tail. And the other. And in the end, simply tie these 2 threads into a secure knot. The crown has been gathered. The fabric was quite thick here. This is the wrong side. I tuck these 2 tails back into the braid. And now, I'll turn the hat to the right side and show you everything. See how snugly the crown fits. Look, here's the hat itself. The whole hat is done now. Ribbing, main pattern, and a very simple crown. Even behind this gathered crown, there are no shortened rows visible where the seam is. Now, let me find it for you. Here it is, marked in red. And here's this lovely beanie, made from just one skein of yarn. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss my new video tutorials. By the way, here's what the wrong side of the hat looks like. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye for now.